So today, day 5, we're going to talk about clear disclosures of your boundaries. If you're attracting people in your life, in your personal life, in your business life, who are violating boundaries over and over again, it's because they probably don't know what your boundaries are. If they knew those were your boundaries, a fairly large percentage of those people wouldn't be in your life. Now, this is a scary thing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it as time goes on. But it is very important that you take responsibility for disclosing your boundaries to people so they can choose whether or not they want to opt in to do business with you, to be in a relationship with you. You have certain parameters, certain boundaries that you've been working on that work for you to show up to do your best work. These are the boundaries you're going to have with clients, with customers, with your staff, with your vendors, all the different, with your business partners, everything, okay? There are going to be different boundaries with different people. But this is the truth. This is who you are. This is what you need for you to show up and do your best work and for you to love it. So it is incredibly important to communicate those boundaries as clearly as possible so people out there can choose to opt in or opt out. So how do you actually communicate those boundaries? It depends on what the boundary is. Some of them you're going to communicate, I recommend, in a very explicit way. And some of them will be kind of implicit boundaries. So explicit boundaries. I recommend that on your website, in your marketing materials, it depends on how you do business and how you're going to actually phrase it. You expressly say these boundaries so people can choose whether or not they want to do business with you or be an employee or be a business partner with you. You want to say things like, if you always want to meet with clients in person, or if you never want to meet with clients in person, if you answer the phone 24 hours a day, or you never answer the phone. If you want to do everything by email, if you hate doing anything by email, never going to have email as part of your coaching program, for example. If you have any sort of boundaries that can be stated in an explicit way, you want to do so, to give people the opportunity to opt in or opt out. Some of them are things that can be listed, like you are a good client if, and then you are not a good candidate for this program if, and you can just have bullet points right there. Some things are kind of more implicit, and what I mean there is, let me give you a very vague kind of example in the sense of very implicit. My website has purple on it. I have a lot of pictures of hiking and pictures of my daughter. These are things that are implicit communications, that I am a mother, that I love the outdoors. The color purple has all kinds of connotations. It clearly states that I'm a woman. I have pictures of exactly how I look, even without makeup. They're right there, okay? Besides the fact that I have links to my personal social media profile so people can see other pictures and other information about my daily life. If someone doesn't want to do business with a woman, if someone doesn't want to do business with a mom or parent who has, has responsibilities besides this business and other priorities, if someone doesn't want to do business with someone who, has hobbies or whatever, I'm not the right person for them. The specific language you choose too communicates more than what you just say. So let me give you another example. This is actually from a business that I had a while ago, back when I first started my own law firm, very long ago. I did estate planning, and I did estate planning. I wanted to set up an estate planning practice that serviced, it focused really on a younger clientele who was not being served very well. And so there's a number of things that I did. One thing that I did was be very specific about choosing the photos on my website, like all the stock photography. So I picked stock photography that I wanted to communicate a sample of the kinds of clients that I wanted to have. So I picked photography that had older people as well as younger people, that had families, two parents with children, that had people of different ethnicities, that had one parent with children, that had couples who were opposite gender and couples who were the same gender, that trying to really have a spectrum of how people could at least appear to look. And the other thing that I did was be really specific about the language. So I didn't say you and your spouse, I said you and your spouse or partner. Because this was back years ago where there was no same-sex marriage. You could be domestic partners was the best you could do. And here in California we had domestic partners and marriage spouses. I was very careful in using that language. I didn't say, I don't think anywhere on my page, hey, I support couples of the same sex being together, or hey, I support same-sex marriage, or I don't know, anything like that. Because I didn't have to expressly say that. It was there everywhere. So if someone wanted to be my client who was totally uncomfortable with that, they probably wouldn't have signed up. And on the flip side, I had a large number of clients who definitely was looking for someone who was cool with that. And even here in the Silicon Valley, apparently that was unusual, which boggles my mind. I didn't have to expressly state it because it was everywhere. And so you're going to be able to do both of those, and with a lot of your boundaries and a lot of the ways you're different, you can communicate them both by expressly saying stuff and then by implicitly the way your website is designed, what stock photos you use, what languaging you use to communicate those boundaries and those expectations with your people. Another set of boundaries that I highly recommend communicating in an express way are those boundaries about pricing. If at all possible, I recommend having your prices on your website. If you have customized services, such that, it's not that your services always cost $500 or $5,000 or whatever, you always give custom proposals, I highly recommend having a range on your site. Because that helps people know if they can show up or not. If the range is so gigantic it would be meaningless, you may be able to disclose what the deposit generally is. But the idea is you want people to know as early as possible in the process what price range we're talking about. Because here's the thing, is that if someone comes to me and says, I want you to do a startup plan for me, and I have no pricing on my site, they may in their head be thinking that a startup plan would cost $500. They don't have any more money than that. That's what they saved up. And it's going to be this embarrassing, bizarre conversation to know that it costs $2,000, which is what it does today. It might cost more depending upon when you're actually listening to this. I may have rearranged things. But that's the idea, is they need to know what general range we're talking about. And other parameters that go with your pricing. So if you have very specific rules, like perhaps you have people sign up for one-day sessions with you and they have to pay up front, tell them about that. So they know you're going to have to come with the money up front even though your session is 4 months away. If you have payment plans or don't have payment plans, whatever are the parameters for you. And also just being open about the fact that this is non-refundable. Here's the thing that scares people. Will there be people who say no because you do this? Yes. Should you be scared that people will say no because you're doing this? No. The people who say no are going to be the people who are going to be problems later. They're going to be the people where you're going to have to harass them to get the money. They're going to be the people who you're going to have to fight with them about boundaries and about enforcing the boundaries. The energy that you're going to have to go to handle them is going to cost way more than the first couple payments that they're going to make to you that are actually going to go through. I know there's certain industries where it can be difficult to do this. If you're doing business to business, small businesses, you're dealing with the owner. It's actually very much like doing business consumer. If you're doing business to business with very large businesses, if you're doing business to government entities, this may not work because it is so extremely customized. However, you can still disclose price earlier in the sales process. So that way, if someone's budget is, you ask them what's your budget for this, and they say it's 20 grand, but of course what this thing is that they want is $100,000. You want to know that as soon as possible so you can figure out what a new solution is. So it's good thing on both sides, even if you're doing something that is highly customized and highly negotiated. This also works for the other relationships. This isn't just about marketing and your relationships with customers and clients and disclosing things as soon as possible to them. It's also with joint venture partners, other business partners, co-founders, with potential contractors and vendors, with potential employees, with your staff who already works for you. You want to have as many expressly defined rules, standards, whatever it makes sense for that particular relationship. You want things to be expressed. If you expect, for example, let's talk about employees. Let's say you have your employees work remotely. So they're working wherever, I don't know. And they don't come into office, so you don't see them working. You may also be very flexible about the hours that they work. But you may have expectations that are unsaid. And they may, such as, you want everyone to respond to email within a certain number of hours, or once a day, or whatever it is. Well, it's unfair to expect that unless you tell somebody. You can't hold someone accountable to a rule unless they know what the rule is. That's just incredibly unfair. So if you have boundaries like that, if you have boundaries that you want your employees to respect or your co-founders to respect, you need to disclose them. In some cases, you're going to put those in some kind of formal agreement, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But even if you're not going to do something formal with every single rule, which a lot of times you don't because they change too much to have them actually go in the contract, you still want to have them written down. It doesn't have to be some super fancy, complicated thing. It can be a Google document, okay? The idea is just having it express as much as possible what your expectations are, what you expect from them, and also, by the way, what they expect from you, okay? If you're hiring someone and one of their expectations is that they want to be able to work from home, and your boundary is you want everyone to come in the office, this is not compatible. This is going to be a horrible problem later. And it doesn't make sense to start out with that employee, even though they may be absolutely brilliant, if they need to work from home 2 days a week and you're never going to be happy with that. So you want to have those boundaries be expressed from both sides as much as possible and as much as you can do within employment laws and all that kind of stuff, because I know it can be very complicated. But as many things as can be written down, the more things can be written down, the better. So your assignment for today is going to be about going through your various boundaries, going through a lot of the stuff that we looked at in the first 3 days. What things about your relationships are driving you up a wall? What things where your boundaries being violated? What things do you need so you could do your best work? And looking at how can you be more express about them. I recommend, just like I said yesterday, of picking 2, 3, 4, 5 things that are the most important to you, that drive you up the wall the most, or you get the most juice out of, or whatever it is, and focus on those. Because you can't do everything all at once. This is an ongoing thing that you'll be working on forever, to be honest, because it always changes, and who you are changes, and what your boundaries are actually change. So this isn't something that just stops. This is living. It's a living organism, because you're a living organism, and your business is a living organism, and it's made up of living organisms. So this is going to be something very, very dynamic. We're just finding a place to start. So pick 3, 4, 5 things, and look at how can you communicate those boundaries in your various relationships. There may be some boundaries that you need to communicate in every single place, and even in personal life stuff. And there may be some boundaries that only apply to clients or that only apply to your business partner. Pick a couple and look at how can you be express in how you disclose those in your work.